Hey, what's up Reddit? This is Joe Lauzon. I fight in the UFC. I'm a professional mixed martial arts fighter, and I have a couple questions from you guys. So I'm going to start with the first one. First one's coming from Runtime. It says, as an amateur jiu-jitsu practitioner, and for all of us that participate in MMA, jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, as a hobby with limited time, what percentage of time should be spent practicing the sport versus conditioning and strength training? For instance, if an amateur has 8 hours a week to do any sort of physical activity, would you recommend 100% sport-specific training, or a certain percentage of that combined with cardio and weights? I'm a strong believer of putting the majority of your time into what you're doing. You know, I'm not gonna put a whole bunch of time into running if I'm not running a marathon. You know, I'm there to fight. I'm there to do jiu-jitsu. Whatever you're gonna do and compete in, that's what you should put the most of your time in. You know, if you have 8 hours, I think you should be putting 6.5 or 7 hours of doing jiu-jitsu or doing boxing, whatever you're gonna do. You know, and when you do other stuff, it should never interfere with the rest of your other workouts. You know, I never ever want to lift and have it affect my boxing workout. You know, I'll do my sport-specific stuff first, my skill stuff first. So I'll box and then I'll go and lift after if I have time or if I feel up to it. If I'm not up to it, or I'm just, you know, I'm feeling overtrained or something like that, I'm not gonna take out my boxing workout or my jiu-jitsu workout in order to lift weights. It's just not smart. Second question comes from Effigy CM. It says, I'm curious how much the UFC tries to get you to trash talk your opponent for the fight promotion videos. Some people are obviously good at this type of thing, but I've seen others where their saying seems totally out of character and forced. Do they sit you down and tell you to talk trash? Or do they maybe use specific questions designed to make you say things that can edit up a promo vid? For the most part, I mean, they're not telling you to talk trash, but they want to get interesting sound bites out of you. You know, it's pretty dumb if, you know, if I'm fighting someone, oh, it's going to be a good fight, they're real tough, and then they don't say anything else. You know, so they try to get something creative out of you, and sometimes it's easier to talk trash, but for the most part, they just want to get something out of you. You know, they're not out there trying to make it look like jerks or anything like that. It's just they need something creative, and usually talking trash is the easiest way to get there. Third question's from Harumph. It says, how do you feel about the UFC's restrictive business practices when it comes down to owning all rights to a fighter, their image even after they leave the UFC? Dropping fighters' sponsors at the drop of a hat, severely restricting their income, refusing to cross-promote, practices that has not only helped Strikeforce and Dream immensely, but is great for the fans, giving fighters layoffs of 6 months or more at times before they're scheduled to fight again, refusing to allow champs to leave even if they have fulfilled their contracts unless they retire and never to fight again or lose. Ala Couture. I think the UFC is top of the heap, you know, so I don't think that UFC should be cross-promoting with others. You know, if you're number one guy, you don't want to partner with the number 10 guy or the number 2 guy or whatever. You know, you want to, in some cases, partnering with someone else is going to help you, but when you're the number one and clear-cut favorite, it's not going to help you. So I definitely think that they're making smart business on that stuff. As far as, you know, having fighters, you know, locking fighters up, the UFC spends a lot of money. You know, they invest a lot of money in promoting fighters, whether it's, you know, setting them up with interviews or flying them places or doing this or doing that or, you know, commercials and all that kind of stuff. I think they do a very, very good job, you know. Part of that is protecting, you know, their investments. You know, they're not going to let a champ just go and, you know, spend all this time promoting this champ, let him win the title and let him just take off, you know. So it's good business is what it is, you know. It seems like maybe it's not good for fighters in some cases, but overall I think they do a pretty good job. And I know personally I'm doing a lot better, you know, and I enjoy my line of work much more now that I'm fighting in the UFC and I'm training every single day as opposed to, you know, working a 9-to-5 job, you know, doing computer science stuff like I was doing before. Next question is from Gold Farmer. It says, how has competing in the UFC affected your sex life? I don't really smile, but I'm just going to give 2 big thumbs up. It's awesome. Next question is from Rexpex. It says, you've trained with BJ Penn, and I've always wondered how your average roll went with BJ. Fairly competitive or lopsided beatdown? I would say a pretty lopsided beatdown. You know, BJ is phenomenal. You know, like, got his black belt in jiu-jitsu, you know, incredibly fast. You know, didn't have a single point scored him at the world championship level, you know, in black belt division, you know, phenomenal. I'm not so good. I'm a pretty good grappler, but BJ's just, you know, the top of the top. So it usually doesn't go too well for me. You know, if I catch him at the very end after he's had, you know, a bunch of guys on him or something like that, I can do not even well, but I can do moderately, not sucking. But for the most part, you know, I can't do a whole lot. I can't pass his guard. I can't improve a position really that much. You know, I really can't do a whole lot. You know, if BJ gave me a triangle choke and I had his arm across and it was completely sunk, maybe I could get something going. But I mean, I've never tapped him, I've never swept him, I've never passed his guard, I've never improved a position, I've never mounted him, I've never done anything good. The best thing I can do is survive. So that's typically how it goes. And it's the same thing with wrestling. It's the same thing with boxing. It's just BJ's the champ. That's why I go to Hawaii. That's why I love to train with him. The guy's a man. Next question's from you know how I do. It says, after you knock out a Jens Pulver, you're already on the radar of a bunch of people. How or why did you decide to go on The Ultimate Fighter after already entering the UFC in such an awesome way? I was talking before about how I think the UFC does a great job at marketing fighters and pushing them and whatnot. When you just fight in the UFC, you only get so much airtime. You know what I mean? If you're like one of the very top guys, you only get to see so much of guys. But if you're on The Ultimate Fighter for 14 weeks, or however many weeks the season runs, you get to learn a lot more about the guys. I think if you're coming off The Ultimate Fighter, they push you a little bit slower because there's a little bit more interest in you to they want to develop you as a fighter. It's not just toss you in there and see how you survive. So they bring you up a little bit slower, which is better for a fighter. I say it all the time. You're only as good as your last fight. Coming off The Ultimate Fighter, it gives you way more attention, way more exposure. It's great all the way around, as far as with fans, with sponsors, just all over the place. Way more people know about guys that are on The Ultimate Fighter show as opposed to, like John Fitch had like 7 fights in the UFC, a couple undercards, whatnot, was on a tear. And a lot of people didn't know who he was at first. It took him a lot longer, whereas come off The Ultimate Fighter, a couple easier fights against easier guys, you have way more recognition, way more, fan awareness. So I just thought The Ultimate Fighter was great. And above all, BJ Penn was the coach, But before I was on the show, I was a huge BJ Penn fan. He's the reason I went on the show. He was my favorite fighter before, and he was the reason I really wanted to go on. Next question is from Kevin JD. It says, according to your Twitter, which is twitter.com/Joe Lauzon, it says you spend more time playing video games than training. You also lost your last fight. What are your thoughts? All right, Dick. Yeah, I lost my last fight. I actually had a decently long conversation with Mike Swick back at the Arnold's in Ohio, and he's saying he plays some video games too. And you can only train so much in the course of a week. Your body can only handle so much. So video games are actually really, really good for your training because you can't be playing video games and missing training. But after you're done training, if you're training as hard as you can, you're not you've used up all your energy. You just need to kind of chill out, relax, take it easy. And video games are awesome. Watching TV is good, but video games are a great way to kind of kill time and take your mind off the fight because most fighters, like I know if I'm not playing a video game or I'm not doing something like that else, my head is running nonstop about the fight. You just kind of need to relax. You need to just take it easy. And video games are a great way to go about it. I play Modern Warfare all the time, and it really helps take your mind off things. Next question is from Gambati. What do you think about UFC Fighter salaries? I think they're criminally low, but I'd like to know what a person who's affected by it thinks. I'm happy with what the UFC pays us. We're not at the level of professional basketball players, professional baseball players, football players, things like that. But I think it's more evenly distributed, than say, in boxing. I think in boxing, the very top guys, your Floyd Mayweathers, your Manny Pacquiao's, your De La Hoya's, they definitely take the lion's share of the pay, and they make, more than, everyone else in the undercard and then some, make. In the UFC, it's more evenly distributed. Like when you start out, your pay is low, but as you climb up the ladder, your pay goes up. The UFC is also great with bonuses and fight of the night, knockout of the night, submission of the night, all that kind of stuff. Almost every single one of my fights, I've gotten some kind of bonus. When I fought Pulver, I got knockout of the night. When I fought Brandon Melendez, I got submission of the night. When I lost to Kenny Florian, I got fight of the night. When I beat Jeremy Stevens, I got submission of the night. When I lost to Sam Stout, I got fight of the night. So if you go out there and you fight, the UFC takes care of you. So a lot of times, the numbers that you see, that everyone's reporting, whether it's MMA Junkie or ShareDog or MixedMartialArts.com or anything like that. Like when you see reported salaries, that's not the whole picture. There's bonuses. Sometimes there's all kinds of things that are going on. Plus sponsors and whatnot. I make way more money fighting in the UFC for than I would doing something else. You know what I mean? I have a lot of friends that I'll make more in one fight than they're gonna make an entire year. So I'm happy with how things are going. Next question is from Sharked. It says, what do you think of Takanori Gomi finally coming over here? Do you think that more quality foreign fighters that come to the UFC would be good for the sport? I think the best fighters in the UFC, and I think it's just a natural progression that all the best guys are gonna gravitate here. You know, I'm pumped to see Gomi. You know, Gomi's one. You know, was like, you know, right up there with BJ Penn, one of my favorite fighters to watch. You know, early on in his career, he was kind of a boring wrestler, would just take people down and stall a little bit. But as he progressed, became one of the best fighters to watch. You know, just like knocking people out. You know, great wrestling still, but you know, dynamite in both hands. He's a southpaw, you know what I mean? He works the body awesome, you know, throws a lot of knees, the whole deal. So I love watching Gomi fight. I'm pumped that he's in the UFC, you know. He's actually fighting Kenny Florian coming up pretty soon, so I'm really interested to see how that fight's going to go. You know, Gomi's one of the best. You know, he was definitely, you know, one of the top guys, you know, period, a couple years ago. He hasn't done as well recently, but he's still a nightmare to deal with. But you know, I think Kenny will beat him, because I think Kenny's just, you know, he's got a good style to beat him. But I'm really looking forward to that fight. Next question is from Jedburgh. It says, what inspired you to move from sitting in front of a computer all day beating up routers to sitting in the gym all day beating up people? I like the reaction I get out of people when I punch them. You know, I went to school for computer science, so I had a full-time job as a network admin, sitting on my butt all day. But the entire time I was doing that, I was going home and I was training, and I'd been doing jiu-jitsu since before that. And, you know, and this is just, you know, it was just a balancing act for me. You know, I would go to work, I'd do all that stuff, and then I would run home to the gym and I would do that, and just, you know, and training was here and work was here, and it's just over time, you know, as it became financially feasible, it switched a little bit. And now, you know what I mean, I still get stuck doing IT stuff for my family a little bit, and I do all my own, you know, I do all my website stuff and all that kind of stuff. But you know, I'm very, very happy with my decision to, you know, pursue fighting a little bit more and get away from the computer stuff. I still like it, you know. I don't think I'll have to go back to it, you know, down the line, but it's nice that I can. You know, it's nice that I have a plan B. But you know, hopefully I'll be running a jiu-jitsu school, I'll be fighting, you know, for a long time. I don't have to worry about it, but it's good to have a plan B. Thanks, Reddit. Go check out my website. It's joelauzon.com. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. All that. You know, if you go to joelauzon.com, you'll find all the links and stuff like that. And if you get questions, send them to me.